This program has been brought to you thanks to the generous contributions of our patrons on Patreon. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. And for more content like this, be sure to check out the Modern Alchemist channel on Patreon.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Greetings, and welcome to the Modern Alchemist channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is the M.A.P, the Modern Alchemist Podcast. Today on the M.A.P, we are going to be talking about the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that is taking place this December on the winter solstice. And we're going to talk about the video that I just did talking about that. And we're going to talk about why I got everything wrong. He laughs. Oh yes, we're going to talk about why I got everything wrong and the implication of this. So to begin, just as I said the last time, I have not invested myself into becoming an expert in astrology. Beyond using it as an instrument to decode astro-historical narratives, of which the zodiac is absolutely about, and understanding the implication of having certain planetary bodies be rulers over those domains, and correlating that with our own astrohistorical heritage across the globe and various cultures, I've actually not taken a great deal of interest in astrology, and specifically I've not taken an interest in using it to prognosticate anything. And my assumption has always been, as I would imagine probably 90 to 95% of you out there, maybe higher, I'm trying to be conservative in my estimate, I'd almost say all of you, except for a small minority, maybe 1 or 2%, who knows. But I would say that pretty much all of us out there are, when we see a website like the Planets Today, that our assumption is that this is an accurate presentation of where the sun is if I were to go outside and take a look. And all of the books, this website is completely consistent with not just hundreds, not just thousands, not just hundreds of thousands, but literally the millions of books that have been published through the course of the 20th and the 21st century here, relating to astrology, the daily horoscopes, the monthly, the yearly horoscopes. Everything is built around this. And the assumption that when you say the sun is in Scorpio, which is what they're saying right now is where the sun is, that the sun is in fact in Scorpio. And when you're examining these websites or any articles written about astrology or trying to inform yourself about astrology and maybe use that information, this would be the other aspect that I have used it for, which was basically I would consult, a website that could be reliable like this one online, asking, okay, I want to do this ritual thing. I want to start and initiate something or another. I'm looking for a good time to do it. I want to draw upon certain energies. I understand that each sign of the zodiac is present within it an energy, earth, air, fire, water. I want to combine that into my intent and make something happen, and I want to time it just right. So then I open a book, I go to a website like this, I consult any number of other contemporary resources which are easily available to everyone, and I put it all together, and I'm like, yep, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it here, and I want to accomplish this, and then I wonder why it's literally a 50-50 prospect whether or not this stuff goes down the way I want it to go. And you wonder, well, what's the problem? Well, what if the problem was that all this information is wrong? And the implication of this is so profound to me. It's why it's taken me a while to just process this to the point where I could articulate it, because at first I've heard of this before. And I'm sure many of you have. And then you wind up reading these articles, it's like, oh, NASA is redefining the zodiac for us. And we're all like, okay, but we have this invested sense that you are what you are in the zodiac. We tattoo it on ourselves. We carry it on our keychains where I'm a Taurus, or I'm a Gemini, or I'm a Scorpio. And from birth to death, that is this one thing that ties us into this tribal community and is a part of our identity. And I'm telling you, you tell some people today that nope, you are not what you think you are in the zodiac, and it's fighting words. I'm not kidding. I have friends and family who are like this. And it's fighting time. It doesn't matter. And yet, here's the implication. If I wanted to truly occult something, right? The first thing is, and this is the one that always bites you in the butt, is when you go out to those sources and you say, but I trusted you, realizing these are esoteric and occult sources, and from the top down, anyone who's ever gone through a hierarchy would ask and say, well, why would you have trusted us? Why would you trust us at all? And so if I wanted to occult something like astrology, make it so that everything that everyone believed about it was absolutely wrong, which would also strip all of the people who are aligning any ritual or ceremonial work to the stars, and they're not actually going outside looking, but they're relying on this as a presentation. Any of those people are suddenly disempowered. They lose their power. And the beauty of it is that all you have to do is go outside and look for your own eyes, or actually get an astronomy program like Stellarium, and then just use that, which is telling you exactly where the sun is, as opposed to where it is not, but a place that has been adjusted to coincide for drift, so that when we look at the zodiac, it's still consistent with what was designed 3,000 years ago in Babylon. And probably earlier still, but definitely 3,000 years ago in Babylon. And because of the Earth's wobble, we no longer are pointing in the same part of north as we used to. And the beauty of the zodiac is there's no problem with that. Just as every generation is born, we just look at where the sun is relative to the stars, and you say that's what you are. See, the fixed nature of this is the part that I don't get anymore. I just don't understand. And other than, conspiracy to occult some obvious information that people in the sciences are all like, dude, I've been frickin' telling you this forever. And yet it's because we read articles, that say, oh no, it's not going to take your zodiac sign away. And we're all, oh, thank God. Because I am a Cancer, I can feel it in my bones. I'm such a homemaker. I'm just totally about cooking and money and God. And yet, where's all this coming from? It's like the ultimate mind job, because it's so closely related to our identity, so closely related to who we are. And for people like me that, are asked questions like, well, what do you think is going to happen? And I'm using these resources because I'm thinking, well, this is where things are. Then I'm passing out more bad information, which I did. Now, everything I said about my feelings about things gathering and energy and them being together, that's one thing, and all that's good, and I stand all by that. The only thing that's the problem is my saying that one was in Aquarius and the other is in Capricorn, and things are moving through certain constellations, which they were not. And the one thing, my patrons know this, that the process of making this conjunction video at the start has been so arduous and so crazy and fraught with so many weird things like just weird things. I wrote a whole narrative for my patrons explaining like this has been the craziest thing ever. It felt like a curse, and I joke because I'd recently seen Stephen King's Thinner, and I was thinking of the gypsy, right? And so I was thinking it was like a curse because this thing has been horrible. Well, as a product of like my first initial recordings when I first was talking about all this, I had actually flipped it. And so I was talking about the conjunction happening in Capricorn instead of Aquarius. And I kept saying Capricorn, 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 even though I had written down Aquarius. And and it's funny because one of my patrons is like, maybe it's you just sort of resisting the merging of these two realities or something. And I'm like, I don't know, but I was like, I was incapable of saying it wrong or saying it right, but I was saying it wrong, but I was actually right. Anyway, so this is a big deal to me. This is huge because as someone who does do this, I feel like you're never too old to learn, folks. Let me tell you, and then when you specialize, you wind up going down your particular rabbit hole, right? And you just assume that certain things along the way are correct because why would they lie? What would be the reason for doing this? Like I honestly, because of the fluid nature of the zodiac, the idea that so much of it is interpretive, given the fact that the sun isn't always in a zodiac sign as it moves from one sign to the next. Many times there's a gulf of space there, right? Which of course other cultures accounted for with additional zodiac characters in those spaces, so you're always something, and now we just break it up so that each sign is apportioned in relative to the solar calendar, right? With so many degrees in each apportionment, 30 degrees in each apportionment. So and that division for some reason has created a stasis, but I can't justify why things just can't tilt and rotate as the sun begins to progress and move. Why not account for that? Unless your purpose to occult the information from the lay wizard, from the guy who's just out there trying to do his thing, or the girl who's out there just trying to do their thing, and they're relying upon this. Now, why would this happen? Well, for me, the reason this happened is because I've always been in or around a large metropolitan center. So after so many decades of having the sky obliterated at night because of all the light pollution from the cities, your focus is less on, gee, I wonder what's up there because there's hardly any stars when you're in the city, right? Or even if you're in a suburb around the city, the light can be so profound that it just, you can't see it. I remember when I was, a side note, when I was in the Navy, the first time we were about 2,000 miles away from land in every direction. The moon was out in full, and it was the first time with the naked eye I was able to just get out on deck and look up. It was a perfectly clear night, and I could see the planets, I could see the stars and the constellations, I could see everything, the color. It was amazing. Stuff that's just absolutely gone when you're raised in first world conditions where there's a city right there on top of you, and you look to programs like this to help you out, and like, okay, well, I can't see it, so I got to trust someone. So where is everything right now, right? I mean, how many of you out there honestly can tell me, by just looking with the naked eye from downtown whatever metropolis you live in, what certain constellations are other than the brightest and the nearest stars to us? I mean, it's sometimes hard to even identify a planet depending upon the nature of the haze and the weather. All of it is just ridiculous. So you trust these programs, you trust the textbooks that you're reading to just assure you that this is where things are, so that if you decide to apply your intent to a constructive purpose and apply that intent toward the universe, right, for the purpose of creating something, and you're drawing on those energies, if you're drawing in the wrong part, if you're pulling on the wrong energies where the sun is not, then already everything that you're trying to accomplish is for naught. So So this is the preamble. I know, but I had to just get this out of my system because it really, to me, this is profound, considering just how deep this is ingrained in our identities to the point of humor. People who don't even know anything about astrology know their zodiac sign. They don't even know what it's about, but they can sure as hell tell you that they're a Leo, you know? And they'll tell you everything that they believe Leos are about. And then they'll say, that's me. And isn't it awesome that you get to know me because I'm a Leo? I'm making fun of Leos. It's all about you, baby. Anyway, so yeah, so and yet none of it's true. So how do I know? How can I prove all this? Well, many of my YouTubers out there kind of said, hey, you should try Stellarium. And it's really cool. And I've had Stellarium on my computer for years. But to be honest, like everyone else, I tend to be a little busy, and I tend to look for the tool that gives me the clearest, easiest way to look at it, which is what you see in front of you right now. And I trust that obviously these guys are going to do their thing accurately. They're presenting it as is seen by everyone who's casting a natal chart right now. For whatever reason, everyone's just shifting it. They're just shifting it. They know where the planets are, but then they're it's so frustrating. Dudes, you're totally hearing me be frustrated. It's true. I am so frustrated. Anyway, because the same energy that is applied to shift it, to make it wrong, could just be to accommodate it, to make it right over time. Because there's nothing wrong with astrology or the zodiac. What's wrong is putting this together wrong. So anyway, one of my patrons also mentioned the Stellarium, and I was like, okay, fine. So I open up Stellarium, and this is what you get. It's by the way, that doesn't cost anything. It's donative or something. I'm not sure. I just loaded it up, and this is what you get. And of course, you're like, okay, now I got to learn. I got to figure it out. I've got it all figured out, which is why we're here. But I just take heart. The way to find things is to move your mouse to the side and then start using some intuition. So the first thing I like to do is pull the date and time window out. Because for me, I'm interested, yes, in where everything is now, but I'm also interested in where things might be going, and I'm also interested in where they've been. So, but to see this, to make it useful, because this is a nice display. There's the sun, right? But you can't see anything because it's daytime. So the first thing you do is you go down here to the bottom, and right here there's a section atmosphere, where you can just press the letter A, and it wipes out the clouds and stuff, and you get to see where everything is, which is really cool because then you can always see where Mercury is and Venus. Often we can't see them, Mercury especially, except for in the early hours of the day or night, just because of where it is in proximity to the sun. But this way you can. And you can look around, but here's the thing. It would be nice to be able to see where everything else was and actually know what I'm looking at. Because, yeah, cool, there's a lot of stars and stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything if you're me or someone like me who's just like trying to get through this and learn where things are. Well, they have solved that and made it super duper easy. And so when you get over here to the constellation lines, you can pop that in. And that suddenly becomes a whole lot more helpful because now you have this, okay, here's the deal with constellations. Now I want to talk for just a moment about constellations and their significance. And that is that if the idea of a constellation or a set series of constellations which remain fixed in such a way so that we're able to look at them and go, look, it's that, right? They do wiggle and wobble, to be sure, but essentially they appear to us as fixed. To me, this is an evidence of electric universe again taking place, where these objects are electromagnetically fixed like a molecule in the sky, each star fulfilling the role per se of an atom, right? And that their electric union then is bridging them together into a constellation. And by virtue of the fact that they're stationary relative to us, that we see them consistently, they're not blowing apart, that means that we're connected to them as they are connected to us, which is, it's sort of like watching a person on a motorcycle or something, and when you're in the car, and we're both driving at the same speed limit. We're kind of connected there, and we're looking at each other. Everything else is moving around us, but we're looking at each other because we're lined up in such a way which is electromagnetically bound in this case. And what's really fun is when I use my imagination in this light, I'm like, oh, so this is how a Stargate would work, because it would rely upon these consistent electromagnetic connections between constellations to provide a bridge point through which we would then travel, right, from one place to another. Stargate Forever. I love that show. All right, so back to this stuff. So we're looking up at constellations, but for most of us, that's still not going to be helpful because they're not labeled. Well, you can label them. You just get down here and press V for constellation labels, and it pulls them up. And you can see right now that the sun is leaving Virgo, and if we use their artistic forms, this is kind of an impression. Someone out there decided a long time ago this is what actually it's all going on up there. In this case, those of you who are born today actually aren't what you think you are, because the sun is just leaving the bottom heel of Virgo and entering into the top part of Libra. And so if we want to get down to our clock here and speed things along a couple days, you actually don't get into Libra until probably the 6th, maybe the 5th. Yeah, the 5th. The 5th probably would be counted. So, like I said, not an astrologer. A lot of this stuff here seems really arbitrary to me, especially when you're looking at dates. And of course, right now it's supposed to be Scorpio, but if we move the calendar forward here a few more days, you can see that we don't enter into Scorpio until about the 24th. And another thing that it's important to note is that not all these constellations are equidistant. So some take up, like Virgo, a whole lot of space in the sky, and then others like Leo or Scorpio don't take up hardly any space. And then you've got Ophiuchus up here at the top coming in, and you can see as we move through the claws of Scorpio, because it never really gets down into it, it's just moving through the claws from one claw to the next, we suddenly are dipping into the bottom end of Ophiuchus. And if we didn't use Ophiuchus, then you're just going through empty space here right now. So this is where the sun actually is. It's not where you're being told it is, and I've been told it is, and that's really weird to me. That's like a fundamental violation. It really feels like some weird total violation where it's something so obvious, and it's one of those things where, tell a lie, make it big, repeat it often, no one's going to believe anything but what we tell you. Like that's what this is. And people are so invested in it, and it very much feels like the Matrix. Like literally, if try it, just try telling someone about this, and you'll have to do this. You'll have to point them at an actual program that says, "Look, this is exactly where the sun is right now. This is it. The sun is here. I know they say it's all the way in Scorpio, but it's not. It's here." and tell them, let people experience, see what happens. They turn into an agent of the Matrix immediately. They're like, and then boom, martial arts time, man. Get ready, put up your dukes, because an agent of the system has been activated and ready to do battle, because their identity is invested in this thing, this zodiac thing. So that's this, and I'm still really blown away, and I'm sure you're blown away. So let's take a look at the conjunction and where everything is from our perspective, geocentrically. And so we'll move forward here to this is all the way in December, and we'll go down to the solstice. So right here. So here we are. Um, at this point, we're entering into the front end of Sagittarius, right at the front. And Jupiter and Saturn are over here, and they're working their way into Capricorn. And by any other judgment is when we get to the one point where I'm going to show you, they're fully in Capricorn. But Aquarius doesn't figure into any of this. So everything I said about Aquarius needs to be applied to Capricorn. And basically, when you look at this, the pivot is such that for the more part, everything is moved into its preceding sign, depending upon when you were born. And again, this is material for professional astrologers who want to sit there and delineate and choose how they're going to do it. It gets complicated, but it shouldn't be. To me, it shouldn't be. It should just be what you're seeing. It should be as simple as that. But so here at the front end of Sagittarius, the sun is rolling in, and this all seems like given the nature of Sagittarius, to me, this feels like a great initiation point, considering everything else and where it is and what it's doing. And of course, when we looked at the other stuff, it was completely different. It was different because the planets and where they are, and their groupings and their conjunctions, all of that other stuff is correct. It's just that they shifted the zodiac so that it reflects where it's not. Well, if I recall, we then move forward to about the middle of, yeah, that's right. Okay, so it would be the 13th of January of the next year. And you notice now, and this is the significant part of this, guys. There's a huge difference between Capricorn and Aquarius in terms of how the symbol is interpreted and the activity of what it represents is displayed. So, and the sign they represent, right? So Capricorn is a sign of initiation. It's a sign of beginnings. This is a fish goat. This is a mergoat. It is depicted in narrative structure as a creature which is emerging from the abyss. There is no sandy beach. It is simply straight out of the water and up the mountainside. And it is within the domain of Saturn. And at this point, what we have, if you can visualize and think like our ancestors used to think, recognize that when they see this stuff together, it's like a gathering of superheroes. It's like a gathering of the Avengers or something. These are the gods. And when you recognize the narrative history between Jupiter and Saturn, the idea that Jupiter is the ruler of the sign Pisces, which is also the age which we have left, when you recognize that all the major nations that developed their symbology during the latter part of going from the 1700s all the way to the latter part of the 20th century, they incorporate a lot of Piscean imagery, birds of prey, things like that, which are associated with the god Zeus. So that god, who is running that age, is now conjuncting with another god, Saturn, who is in charge of the sign Capricorn and also Aquarius. In fact, from the standpoint of what we are stepping into, this is the launch point of a Saturnian age. So to understand the complexities of that age, what it will entail, the kind of government that will be held, the personal ethic that is presented. Each one of these are going to be challenged. We're not going to see the libertine ethic that is experienced within a Jovian reign. We're not going to see that. Instead, an ethic that celebrates the individual. We're no longer there. We're not about the individual. Utilitarianism is, in fact, the motto. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Well, here we are And we have a gathering of the gods within the constellation of Capricorn. The moon is in attendance here. Jupiter is there. Mercury is there. Venus is approaching, coming up through Sagittarius. And this to me is like seeing these gods gather together to exchange authority. And what blows my mind is that someone long ago in Babylon was able to predict the motion of the stars to the extent that they knew that we would be entering into a Saturnian age with a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Capricorn. It's amazing. See, that's why astrology is cool to me. I'm looking at it from that standpoint, the historical standpoint. But to find out that now, today, we've been so deceived, really. So let's take a look at the big day. The big day, as I saw it, was February 10th. February 10th of 2021. On February 10th, the sun is now on the tail end of Capricorn, but still clearly in Capricorn, moving in towards Aquarius. And the sun is joined in Capricorn by Jupiter, by Saturn, by Venus, by the moon. I believe somewhere in there is Mercury. They're all in there. And then, of course, what's also fascinating is as we move, Mars is right over here at the foot of Aries. So Mars is in the seat of his domain, Aries, the seat of his power, during this period of conjunction within Capricorn on the 10th. And then, as I mentioned on the 11th, on the 10th, this is the last part of the waning crescent. And then on the 11th, we have a new moon. So there's the moon right there. So, yeah, and there's the moon. And this program, by the way, is really cool because it's giving you all of the information here on the side. There's an incredible amount of information right here. So it's brand new moon right here in the middle between Aquarius and Capricorn, joining the sun. If I were to pick a date and say this actually is the day, because I can't think of another day that would be more spectacular, then this would be it. This would definitely be the day. You have everything right where you'd want it. It is a literal gathering of the gods. Kabbalistically, you have virtually all the planets represented in the Tree of Life, all there in one spot, communing and passing authority from one divinity, one stellar aspect to another, to rule and reign for that age. And in Saturn's case, it will be Capricorn and then Aquarius. Tell me what you think, you guys, now that you know February 10th, 2021. That's a big day. Or the 11th, depending on who you are and what you're looking at. You could do a conclusion of one era and the beginning of another, but there will never be another time like this where everything's all grouped up in Capricorn. Not with the timing of it relative to the emergence of one age from a preceding age. So there you go. Thank you for joining me here on the M.A.P, the Modern Alchemist Podcast. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and I'll be talking to you soon.